Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Nadex Morning Analysis, where we look at potential hotspots in the markets for the day. My name is Todd Rich. I'm with Nadex. With me from Keep Trading Simple, the birthday boy, Brian
Yeah,
Caprice. Should I
I
sing
made
to
it.
you? Happy
Yeah,
birthday to you, Mr. President. that
exactly.
was my Marilyn Monroe impression.
It sounded I couldn't tell who it was, We're so close.
Yeah, it just doesn't work. All right, it is Monday, August 30th, and we're having a little too much fun this morning. Uh,
You got to, because
we
there's nothing exciting out there, so we gotta do
there,
something.
we got to do something, a little song and dance, because it is a very quiet day to, or at least at the moment, to open up the week. Before we jump into our discussion and look at the charts, I do need to share this disclaimer that trading involves risk and may not be appropriate for everyone. That any trading decisions you make are solely your responsibility and at your own risk. And this is an educational session. Please do not construe anything Brian or I say as a buy or sell recommendation. We are doing this for your education purposes. So, what are we looking at today? And there really are only two things that are moving. Equities
Yeah,
are totally flat
yeah.
after a little bit of a relief rally on the heels of the Jackson Hole Summit comments from Powell. Nothing going on there. Nothing really going on anywhere. What we do have is some movement in crude oil. You can see that oil gapped and opened higher and then completely sold off, and now it's making a retrace. We are seeing that volatility in oil, probably uh, moving around as people digest what's going on down in New Orleans and how that will impact oil production out of the Gulf. The U.S. does produce a lot of its own oil. There's a lot of activity going on down there. Well, oil activity in general, but today and for a little while, probably not so much. And if anyone's down in New Orleans, I hope you are faring well.
I don't
That
know if they have power yet. I
they
know that
have
they
no
said that
power.
all of New Orleans, yeah, they said, I think I saw this morning, they said like 1 million homes are without power. Yesterday,
No power.
all of New Orleans was out. Um,
Complete
yeah.
catastrophe on the transformer system.
hmm
I mean,
Yeah,
listen,
that's what it was. Yep.
this is the this this is was a category 4. It just it
Yeah, it hit.
just
Yeah,
came
it hit.
shy of
I think
5.
it's. Yeah, when I saw this morning, it said it was 1 million homes out. It hit at a category 4, but it's already down to a tropical storm. So it used
Yeah.
everything that it had like instantaneously when it
The
hit.
punch. Yeah.
Yeah,
It stayed as a 4 for a while. I mean, my son is down there for school, so we've been paying very, very
he got
close
down there
attention.
just in time.
Yeah, I know. It's like, "Hey, let's open school up and then have a hurricane." They're all fine. Everyone's I mean, right now, everything seems to be okay, at the campus. Would
Hey,
hope
that
the
was the
rest of
best
New
part of
Orleans.
college, hurricane parties. I used to go down to North Carolina just for the hurricane parties. It was
My
awesome.
lord. So, yeah,
Yeah.
it's a mess. It's a mess, and yeah, it looks so far like the levee system is holding up. So, you gotta count,
And
count your blessings
a-
where you got them.
and it was 16 years from Hurricane Katrina. The fact that it hit on the same day 16 years ago is absolutely mind-boggling.
That
So,
irony is not lost on me either. All right, so we
yeah.
got oil. So we see oil moving around. That is a hot spot. We're going to take a look at the oil
Mhm.
charts, and we'll look at some support and resistance levels, or some places where buyers and sellers step in, just because that is some place to be looking today. The other, interestingly enough, we don't talk about it a lot. The Swiss franc on Friday, you can clearly see the dollar got hammered on the news out of Jackson Hole, but then some economic news coming out of Europe, and the Swiss franc has retraced a good chunk of that. The other currencies have not. So you look at all the other
Mhm.
currencies, the dollar got hammered, they got strength, and here you see the Swiss recovering a bit. So Brian, I'm actually going to flip it over to you, and let's just quickly go
Yep.
through the the oil and the Swiss franc today, and then we'll leave the rest for tomorrow. I think there's going to be potentially some more interesting things to discuss tomorrow and the rest of the
Mhm.
week. But for today, this is what we got.
Yeah, I guess we'll start with the oil chart first. So, last week, Friday on oil, you can see we had a nice move up, and then basically it flatlined. It kind of just, for lack of a better word, it died on us. It just didn't do anything. It was a very, very kind of blunted, very, very small day. I mean, talk about a very inside day. Now, Fridays are always one of those days that. Oops, I forgot that I rose that up just a little bit too much. Pull it back to there. All right. But again, when we have kind of days like this on Friday, again, there was news, everybody was waiting. We had, suicide bombs in Afghanistan, which is another one of those buttons. It's like, all right, what are we doing? What do we, everybody was in that wait and see type mode and it just consolidated and kind of died out on us. We had talked about 69.58 or 69, 69.50, that kind of roundish number that we were looking for last week. This is an ideal setup. And this is one of those things, this kind of, although we had great movement in there, I use this as kind of like an education piece of it. Sunday night gaps are like really great to trade. Reason why is because, again, there's not a lot of volume out there, and it tends to be a really purely kind of technical based, more or less play. I do it with currencies all the time. My students, we share it all the time. But here's another situation, and again, I use Sunday night gaps because, again, for the currency market, there is not really gaps in there because the market doesn't close. Everybody else typically closes like during the day. So you'll see gaps in stock prices all over the place because the market's closed. Currencies, we do it on Sundays, but this is a perfect example of how a gap play works. When there is a gap and it goes into a zone, they tend to be extremely strong levels. And again, you can see it went well past. This is the 1 to 3. It went well past. I mean, this one went all the way down to 1 to 6.7. Starting the week off that way, opening up inside of a zone, it doesn't get any better than this. Now, has it really changed much? I mean, we closed here on Friday. Technically, the market's not open, right? We're technically up from where we closed on Friday, but yet all this movement happened in the overnight. So
right.
A lot of great opportunity. People, and I actually expect this to come back up again. The question is, will we be able to do much with that 69.50 level again? You could draw kind of smaller zones coming in up here, this orange level here. And again, the reason I point that out is because, let me get this and highlight right there. Right there is really kind of our European session open. Right in this range right here with this little base. So we can see that pretty much today it's been just straight up so far. There will be reversals. Today, the big kind of draw on this will obviously be New Orleans. A lot of this is kind of the market preparing for it. It's just one of those things, everybody always asks, does news matter? Is going to, what should I be following the news? Should I be looking to see it? Should I analyze the news? Should I try to hit the button really, really quickly? I mean, here's a technical base level. Everybody knew that this, the hurricane was hitting, yet oil prices went down when we shut down the Gulf of Mexico. Why? Because, again, this is a technical base level. Now, with it all shut down, now it's not kind of the other reactions come in. So, again, I expect it to go up higher. Question is, do we base here, and does this become the new takeoff point? Do we hit the, 70? I don't know. Is it possible to hit 70.50 today? Probably.
Even 70 again, just to get through it, right?
Yeah, and it's not even like anything really changed. I mean, if we have to shut the Gulf down for like a day or two, does it really affect the output? No, not really. No, I mean,
it's a trade. This is purely a trade.
Yeah, but when they talk about the destruction and how long it's going to take, and again, all they're doing is and not the media is not the ones trading it, but they're preying upon fear and greed and things like that, and that's why we saw this drop down again. You had to expect a reversal in this because, again, the best time to buy is when the price pulls back. The experts on Sunday night, remember, no retail traders looking at this on Sunday night. Price gets driven down, and magically, when the UK traders step in, now they're getting this on a discount. Right, they just got this at a discounted price, and now price is continuing to rise up again. So, big question is, will we break through the 69.50 level today? And if we do, if we come through here, there's a little bit of an aggressive trade. But in the overnight Sunday night, I mean, you guys could have woke up this morning and been like, "Oh my God, look at this! It moved!" And it was a decent mover. I mean, to the downside, that was a $2 move on a Sunday night. And that's one of the biggest things moving right now. And again, it's still showing right now. It's showing that it's in the green, but you can see how much it dropped down from its kind of highs in the overnight. So. Again, trade's done. We can't do much with it. If you're long, I think you got some more room to go before you need to start thinking about taking profit. But kind of keep this on your radar, the 69.50-ish range. If we come up here and start basing, and even if it breaks through the 69.60, which is kind of where the peak hit, again, that could be the new level of buyers stepping in on a stabilization point to jack this one higher up again. And remember, they're talking about it's hurricane season. This is only the first big one to come through. There's two more right behind it that are tropical. I mean,
right
behind
I don't know
if that's the case, but I mean, last year
there's gonna be plenty of them.
Yeah, I think last year, it was last year or 2 years ago. Remember, we ran out of names. Like they go through the entire, they go through. Yeah,
Yeah.
every one is a different name, and it goes down, and we're only on I. So I mean, there's plenty to go through it. And last year we ran out of names, so there's a lot more potential that could come through there. And again, now we're doing retaliatory strikes in Afghanistan, which again is one of those things. All these are factors that are like, yep, good for oil, good for oil, good for oil,
Yep.
good for oil, good for oil. And then
So
there's some
we've
news out
got
of the ECB.
volatility
So
there. There's definitely volatility there in the oil. Let's jump over and take a look at the Swiss franc, the other place where we had some volatility, and see if there's
yeah,
some
so I mean,
potential
as you
levels in
mentioned,
there
there
that
was
you
really
might think.
no movement in currencies. The only two bits of news we had this morning, one was the Swiss economic barometer, which came in pretty bad. It was expected to be lower at 126, came in at 113, and the Swiss is up about the dollar Swiss is up about 55 points right now. The only other news was at 8:30 was the Canadian dollar had the current account, which came in over twice as big. That was huge news, and this is something that I would definitely be watching out for going into the future. Reason why is because current account is your exports versus your imports. Being over doubled, it means that their exports are really taking off, and that's what really jumpstarts and kicks an economy going. Definitely be watching that dollar CAD position. As
And
far
we
as
and we
dollars,
are going to, by the way, just as a footnote, we are going to be discussing dollar CAD. Actually, you know what? Well, tomorrow morning, it's too late to talk about any setups, but they've got their GDP tomorrow morning at
mm-hmm.
8:30 Eastern. So right before we go on tomorrow, the Canadian dollar could
Yep.
be bouncing around. So you might want to look at the dollar CAD. Unfortunately, it's difficult for us to do any uh, analysis of it right now because we don't know what things are going to look like by then.
Yeah. Yeah. So here's the dollar Swiss, and I had some fun with it. I threw some fibs on there. Last week, obviously, we had that trade position that bounced off the 91.98. It was there forever. This was like watching paint dry to get it to hit. And it finally hit and dropped and then had a huge move again. Jackson Hole. We kind of found a stabilization point. We were looking for a reversal off the 87. It didn't make it that low. It ended up kind of petering out on us. Actually, it petered out just a little bit higher and then opened just lower and kind of punched through that level. And then actually, if you looked at it, it actually did a little bit one of those Harry Potters where it came up and it based in a candle and pulled back again and then took off. And again, all this was just the Swiss news. You know, we don't really get Swiss news that often, but it was pretty bad. Now it's pulled up, and again, fun with fibs, right? It's not Friday, but fun with fibs. You can see it pulled up, and it was having some problems in the 50%. You know, people will use a stop loss here of the 61.8. It's one of those things. There's really not much holding it up. By the way, we saw these candles drop last week. There's not really areas here we can really say with a high degree of confidence that this is a great reversal level. And I'm using this to show you right now that, you know, these lines are great, but remember, if you listen to the presentation, that the percentage level itself should not be your trigger. It's supposed to be used with other systems as a confirmation method. This is a perfect example of that it's having some issues. It pulls back and people are like, look, 50%, 50%. There's not a lot there. There's a little bit
Right.
here, but again, you're supposed to be using it in some type of a confirmation. You can use it first and then confirm it with something else, or vice versa. I use this something else first, the supply and demand, and then confirm it with fibs. So it's both ways. And again, with the U.S. dollar coming online, the trend last week for the dollar minus the Jackson Hole day was dollar strength when the U.S. trader came online. The Dixie right now is kind of showing the same thing. We kind of found the bottom in the 30-minute. You can see it kind of fought back and forth, and we're just literally bouncing off of kind of this level right here of buyers. So it's got a little tiny bit of a hiccup. Right, a little tiny bit of a hiccup right here that we're just getting into right now. And again, the U.S. kind of power is coming online. It could provide a little bit of turn, but if it doesn't, we're in a racetrack to the top side with dollar strength today. So we don't have a lot right now. I mean, the euro dollar has only got 8 pips down. Again, some dollar strength there. Pound dollar, a little bit of dollar strength. Dollar yen, a little bit of dollar strength. This one, obviously, we know the dollar CAD is still fighting a little bit. Aussie dollar strength. So we're seeing dollar strength starting to move. The train is starting to spin those wheels. And again, the dollar index is showing that right now. If this doesn't act as the turnaround point, again, we rally back up to this 93 mark. I can see the dollar Swiss going pretty much all the way back up again to where it was at the end of, where is it? Dollar Swiss, all the way back up into this, right back to 91.95. And again, I think it's worth another short in that level just because we barely broke into this level and it turned and collapsed right back down again. So took a long time to get there, but the way that it exited, I think it's a level that shows us that there are still people that are willing to sell in that level. And again, you see the 61.8 under threat right now.
Perfect.
That way you can
All
see
right. Well, for a relatively quiet Monday, as we are wrapping up August, and then finally we'll be heading into September and Labor Day, and maybe some sense of normalcy. I don't know. We'll see how that pans out. If you got any questions for Nadex, please email us customerservice@nadex.com. Any questions for Brian? Brian is also accessible. Or even if you just want to send him a message that says, "Yo, happy birthday," and you could sing to him. Maybe you sing better than I do. You could send that to Brian for Brian at
You're
support
setting the bar high, Todd. You're setting the bar high.
support at keeptradingsimple.com. Um, yeah, what did we cover today? Oil is definitely something volatile today. Again, that's a lot of that is based on what's going on in the Middle East as well as what's going down, what's happening down in the Gulf. And then we saw some nice volatility in the Swiss franc. That dollar Swiss franc pair that's moving around, and then potentially some opportunities if we continue to see some dollar strength, uh, some broad dollar strength. You might see that translate to some of the other currency pairs as well. With that, I want to thank you for joining us today. We will catch you again tomorrow morning. Remember, I did send you that link. We will probably be discussing dollar CAD tomorrow morning, but it will be after the news. Unfortunately, the news will have come out 15 minutes before we go on, but we'll do a little bit of analysis on that, and then we'll take a look at the rest of the week. Want to wish everyone good luck in the markets. We will see you tomorrow.